Remember when we vowed the vows and walked the walk, gave our hearts, made the start, and it was hard. We lived and learned life in curves. There was joy, there was hurt. Remember when. Remember when old ones died and new were born. Life was changed. Disassembled, rearranged. We came together, fell apart, and broke each other's hearts. Remember when.
At this time, I would like to ask all that can stand to please stand and uncover. And I would like to ask American Legion Post 274 Color Guard to please post the colors.
Colors, post.
Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in a Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now we will have the national anthem sung by band.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleam, through clouds and bright stars, through the perilous fight, o'er the ramparts we watch. We're so gallantly streamed, and the rockets ripping, the bombs bursting in, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave?
I would like to thank Stan Johnson and American Legion Post 274 Color Guard for posting in the colors. Now I would like to ask Chuck Wheelcock to come up and deliver the opening prayer.
Thank you, Lord God, for this opportunity to gather with our friends and our family this evening. Father, where there is sadness, I ask for joy. Father, where there is hurting, we ask for comfort. Father, where there is sickness, we ask for healing. Father, where there is doubt, we ask for wisdom. Where there is turmoil, we ask for peace. Thank you for the courage and the dedication of all the men and women who have served this great country in uniform and are currently serving. We ask for your blessing for the future. We ask for your blessing for all our children and the people that we have fought for. And we thank you again. Father, we ask for your grace, your mercy, your forgiveness, your love, and your peace. And in your precious name we pray. Amen. Amen.
I would like to call upon Erica Apteker to the podium for a speech on Spirit of 45.
Welcome. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Erica Apteker, and I am the Lee County Chairman for Spirit of 45. This is my 4th year. Thank you. Thank you. This is my 4th year involved with this wonderful initiative, and I'm so honored and feel so blessed to be a part of this. I've had the privilege of speaking with most, if not all, of the World War II veterans present, and over the years have gotten to know quite a few of them. To the members of our greatest generation, I hope you know that you've all touched my life and touched my heart in more ways than you can possibly imagine. You should also know that the amount of love and support for this initiative has grown significantly over the past few years. Every year I leave here saying to myself, it doesn't get much better than this. But every year, miraculously, it has gotten better. The Lee County Spirit of 45 has more than doubled in the last 2 years. This year, there are 284 people on the roster, 143 of which are members of our greatest generation, and 88 of which are World War II veterans. This evening, we are a combination of generations, and for those who are not of the World War II generation, please understand that if August 14th had gone in any other direction, life as we know it would be completely different. We would likely not be here today. I've had members of our greatest generation thank me for doing this for them. Please don't thank me. I feel so privileged and so honored to be able to do this for you. You are people who endured the Great Depression, went off to fight a horrific war, and when it was over, you selflessly rebuilt the nation. I am completely humbled by all of you. I want you to walk out of here knowing how much we all love and respect you. I know you were just standing, but would all of the World War II veterans who are willing and able to stand please do so? We thank all of you for your service and sacrifice, and please know that your example needs to be followed throughout the generations to come. This is what Spirit of 45 is all about, making sure that our nation's greatest generation's legacy is passed down to our youth of today. For those of you who are not familiar with Spirit of 45, I'd like to take a moment to share with you what this actually is and how it all came about. On August 14th, 1945, the people of the United States received word that World War II had ended. On that day, Nurse Edith Shane, then working in New York, ran to the subway to get to Times Square as fast as she could to celebrate the news. When she got there was a joyous sailor kissing all the women he could, and at that precise moment when he grabbed Edith Shane and kissed her, Albert Eisenstadt photographed the famous picture of the kiss seen around the world. Up until 1979, when Edith turned 60, her identity was unknown. In 2009, she appeared as Grand Marshal in a National Memorial Parade in Washington, D.C., along with Stories of Service National spokesperson Ernest Borgnine. The two of them, both being from the World War II generation, talked for quite some time, and Edith asked, "Why can't we do this every year?" She then offered her accidental celebrity status to promote keeping this generation's legacy alive. She campaigned tirelessly for a permanent annual day, and in August 2010, Congress unanimously passed a resolution supporting the observance of a National Spirit of 45 Day on the second Sunday in August, coinciding with the anniversary of August 14, 1945. Today, I had the distinct pleasure of calling up Mr. Zachary Zampella to the podium. Zach is the Regional Director, Southwest Region, to the Office of the United States Senator Marco Rubio. Zach will be reading and presenting the Spirit of 45 Congressional Resolution. Let's give him a warm welcome.
Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Senator Rubio asked that I express to you his disappointment that he wasn't able to be here in person tonight, but he did send me with a copy of the resolution, and he asked me to read it to you. On July 27, 2010, Congress, both the House and the Senate, did unanimously pass this resolution, and it reads, whereas on August 14, 1945, the people of the United States received word of the end of World War II, whereas on that day, people in the United States and around the world greeted the news of the Allies' noble victory with joyous celebration, humility, and spiritual reflection. Whereas the victory marked the culmination of an unprecedented national effort that defeated the forces of aggression, brought freedom to subjugated nations, and ended the horrors of the Holocaust. Whereas these historic accomplishments were achieved through the collective service and personal sacrifice of the people of the United States, both those who served in uniform and those who supported them on the home front. Whereas more than 400,000 Americans gave their lives in service to their country during World War II, whereas August 14th, 1945, marked not only the end of the war, but also the beginning of an unprecedented era of rebuilding in which the United States led the effort to restore the shattered nations of the Allies and their enemies alike, and to create institutions to work towards a more peaceful global community. Whereas the men and women of World War II generation created an array of organizations and institutions during the post-war era which helped to strengthen American democracy by promoting civic engagement, volunteerism, and service to community and country. Whereas the courage, dedication, self-sacrifice, and compassion of the World War II generation have inspired subsequent generations in the United States Armed Forces, including the men and women currently in service in Iraq, Afghanistan, and around the world. Whereas the entire World War II generation, military and civilian alike, has provided a model of unity and community that serves as a source of inspiration for current and future generations of Americans to come together to work for the continued betterment of the United States and the world. And whereas the second Sunday in August has been proposed as Spirit of 45 Day to commemorate the anniversary of the end of World War II on August 14th, 1945. Now, therefore, be it that Congress supports the observance of Spirit of 45 Day. Thank you.
Thank you, Zach. As I stated before, it gets better every year. Last year, I had received word that Spirit of 45 had received its State of Florida resolution, thus making the second Sunday in August Florida's permanent Spirit of 45 Day. Representative Dane Eagle was on the program to read the resolution, but had to be in Tallahassee for a special session. Joshua Jones graciously stepped up to the plate and is here to speak on behalf of House of Representatives Kurt Clausen, as well as present the State of Florida resolution. Let's welcome him.
Good evening. As Erica said, my name is Joshua Jones, and I'm with Congressman Kurt Clausen's office, and I have the distinct privilege and honor of presenting the Florida State Resolution for the Spirit of 45. Now, Franklin Delano Roosevelt once said that your generation had a rendezvous with destiny. And if ever there were true words, your generation is a generation that pulled us out of the Great Depression, that carried us through war, and relaid the foundation that every blessing that my generation enjoys was built on. And from my generation to yours, I would like to say thank you for all of your hard work and sacrifice. May God bless you all, and may God bless America. Erica.
Thank you, Josh. Our first World War II veteran guest speaker is quite the patriot and is equally as humble. Mr. Harry Beeman served in the Pacific Theater. The USS Ellet DD-398 was his home. He served from February 13, 1939 to October 29, 1945. I had asked Mr. Beeman to send me a bio on himself so that I could properly introduce him, and the bio really does not do this man justice. He is most likely already known to many of you because of his website and the many times he has spoken to local groups. Rest assured, he is very proud of the generation he represents, the group of people that are referred to as our greatest generation. Mr. Beeman was personally in every major battle which occurred in the Pacific War or our war with Japan. He proudly claims that he, most likely, shot down more Japanese airplanes than any person you will ever meet in your entire lifetime. The main theme of his speech today is divine intervention. Without further ado, let's welcome Mr. Harry Beeman.
Thank you, Erica, for the very kind and generous introduction. I appreciate it. Folks, in 13 days, I'll be 92 years old. Erica told you, as I've gotten older, I believe in divine intervention. Where did it start? I didn't realize in that 4 years I was out there for the whole 4 years. Got back 6 weeks in September of 1943. The reason I got back is my little ship had a lot of battle damage. The propulsion system was worn out. Our gun barrels were smooth. We had no rifling left in them. And we had been in every major battle. And I'm sorry to say, when we went back, we missed the Battle of Tarawa. Very few people know that there were 75 D-Days in the Pacific War. When you hear D-Day, what do you think of? You think of Normandy. You think of Europe. And I am shocked to this day. The few fellows that stayed with me for a few years, they're all gone now, that was in the 8th Air Force or over in Europe in the Army. I would ask them, I said, you ever heard of the Solomon Islands? Never heard of it. What do you know? Well, I know about Iwo Jima. John Wayne made a movie. But my little ship made nearly every one of those 75 D-Day landings. And I want to tell you, out of that grew an admiration for United States Marines, the finest fighting man that there is in the world. Not just in the United States, but in the world. United States Marines. And if there's anything hard about this, Erica told me, Harry, you've got to limit it to 15 minutes. Well, that's tough. How can I squeeze 4 years of being in the breach of a naval cannon, which there's where my hearing and my balance went. That acoustic trauma now, they say, is the biggest cause of PTSD, of the guys coming back from Afghanistan and Iraq. These men over there, mortars, 50 caliber machine gun. Well, wait a minute. Most of us that were gunners on a destroyer, we were in the breach of a big naval cannon for 4 years. We had no air protection at all. You will notice, and I've been accused many times when I'm walking on something, well, I believe that man's had, I think Harry's had too much to drink. I don't drink at all, but I stagger, and I'm proud of that stagger. I earned it proudly. But divine intervention was a subject I would love to talk to you quite at length, but I'm not permitted to do so. Divine intervention, let's talk about the Battle of Midway. That was the second time. When I got on my little destroyer, they sent a whaleboat over. She was coming out with the Enterprise, and we went out and met the Hornet. When they pulled my little sea bag up out of the whaleboat, they said, kid, I'm 19 years old. These were old timers, 25, 27, 29 years old. They said, kid, you got any idea where you're going? I said, no, where are you going? Where are we going? Well, you're on your way to Tokyo. I said, really? What a shame. My first run is going to be my last. Well, we went into Tokyo with Jimmy Doolittle. We were with the carrier Enterprise. And when we came back from there, we were getting ready to go down into the Solomon Islands. But that was not to be, because the code breakers had broke the code, and we knew the Japanese were secretly going to come in and try to take Midway. Well, let me tell you, folks, if they'd have got Midway, west of the Mississippi today, you'd be speaking Japanese. And east of the Mississippi, you'd be speaking German. So we went in. Now picture this. Here are these figures. We went into Midway with 28 ships, most of them carrying battle damage. And we had mainly destroyers and 3 aircraft carriers. We lost the Yorktown there. She came up with battle damage from the South Pacific, and she was jury-rigged, fixed up. We lost her at Midway. But when we went into Midway, we had 28 ships. The Japanese had 88, nearly all brand new, less than 6 years old. They'd have been practicing for this war for 6 years. And we whipped their rear ends in 2.5 days. We sank 4 of their carriers. Now, do you believe in divine intervention? That's only just a tidbit, I'm telling you. I could tell you more about divine intervention. My little ship, when we were down, the next big one was down at the Solomon Islands. And the Solomon Islands, we went in on the 8th, and on the 9th, the Japanese sent down a force from, I believe it was Rabaul, Rendova, somewhere up in there. They came in the middle of the night, and I'm sorry to say we had a bunch of old admirals that had been surrounding President Roosevelt at his desk. You know, President Roosevelt, previous to being president, he had been the Secretary of the Navy. Well, all these old guys, instead of retiring, he made them aides to him around the desk in Washington. Well, what did he do when the war broke out? Well, he sent them out to us in the Pacific. They had no idea about radar. They'd never been to any war schools or anything. Over that, we lost thousands upon thousands of men because these men didn't know. And then finally, Admiral Nimitz in Pearl Harbor looked it over. He said, I need Admiral Bill Halsey. We knew him as Bull Halsey. And he came in during the Solomons campaign, and that was the turnaround. That really turned us around. We got many things. The Mark 28 projectile was a new thing for us. We was amazed at it. You could fire a shell at a Japanese plane coming at you, and the closest point that shell is going to pass the spark that's coming out of the engine, it explodes and takes that plane out. Up till that time, they had a manual fuse that was set. Well, if you were lucky and hit the plane as the projectile went out, well, you were just that, you were lucky. But that turned it around. We called the Mark 28 the Buck Rogers, and that helped us win the war. But divine intervention, I could stand here and bloviate and tell you for the next hour, hour and a half about battles in the Pacific. On the first round that we made on D-Day, on the 23rd of February, some of the guys said, look up there on Mount Suribachi. There goes the first flag up. About 2 hours later, when we completed the loop and was firing over the heads of the Marines, there went the second flag. I'm standing here before you. I'm probably the only man you'll know in your lifetime that saw both flags raised on Iwo Jima. So with that, folks, I will say to you, God bless America, and let me say, He always has. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Beeman. Our next World War II veteran guest speaker, Mr. Bert Kurland, is quite the amazing individual. Mr. Kurland is a retired Army U.S. Colonel, Special Forces. He served 27 years active/reserve duty. He enlisted in the military January 11th, 1944 at the age of 17. Infantry basic training at Camp Croft, South Carolina, parachute training at Fort Benning, Georgia, January 1945. Joined the 11th Airborne Division, Luzon Island, Philippines, June 1945. He was wounded his last airborne operation of World War II against the Japanese. Served in occupation of Japan, August 1945 to May 1946. Discharged as corporal, November 1946. U.S. Army Commission, June 1951. He served 2 tours in Vietnam with 5th Special Forces Group from 1966 to 1968 in the Delta. He was wounded, superficial, in August 1967. He was discharged from the military October 1st, 1984. In addition to his military career, he was married 61 years to Wanda, has 5 children, 8 grandchildren, and 7 great-grandchildren. He served 22 years with the U.S. Department of State Field Ops in Vietnam, Bangladesh, Ghana, and the Sinai. Let's welcome Mr. Bert Kurland. Thank you, Bert.
Thank you. Not much left to say, 15 minutes. But I would like to take a couple of minutes. I want to thank Erica. You know, we emailed back and forth a little bit, and she does a fantastic job and in organizing. And this is a good example of what her accomplishments are. Okay. On December 7th, 1941, actually December 8th, 1941, some buddies of mine and me went down to enlist. I had just turned 14. I think I was about 5'3" and 120 pounds. And I got tired of being thrown out of the recruiting offices of the Army, the Navy. I didn't try the Marines, they looked ugly. The Air Force, nobody would take me. Well, nobody took my buddies either. I had 2 good buddies. I was in the 11th grade at that time, and 2 of my buddies, and I was 17 in 1944. We went down and fortunately was able to get registered for the Army. My 2 buddies were 18 plus. I was still 17. They took them right away and they put me on a delayed program. My 2 buddies kept in touch for a while they were in basic training. When they finished basic training, they joined a division that went in on June 6, 1944, on D-Day. Neither one of them survived. And it still stays with me because they had not yet reached their 19th birthday. As Erica said, when I finished jump school at Fort Benning, I was assigned, the war in Europe was over. So the only place to go was the Pacific. And there was only one airborne division in the Pacific during World War II, was the 11th Airborne Division. So after a boat ride across the Pacific, I joined the 511th Regiment of the 11th Airborne Division, and that was on 3 June 1945. On the 23rd of June, we were to make the last airborne operation of World War II in the Pacific. On the 23rd of June, an eager beaver like me climbed aboard that C-47. I made the jump. My jump was shot away. My chute collapsed. And that was the extent of my war experience because both hips and my knee were dislocated. Somebody scarfed me up on the drop zone, took me to a field hospital. I think it was my right hip that popped back in, so all I had was my left side that was immobilized. Recuperating, so I don't have any real war stories to tell you about what I did in World War II. It seemed like it was short-lived. And we heard about the Japanese, after the bomb was dropped, surrendering. The 11th Airborne was the first division. I don't care what the 1st Cavalry say, we were there before them, to occupy Japan. In fact, when MacArthur came back to the Philippines, our division band met them on the beach and played the Old Gray Mare, and what she used to be, which was a popular song for the Cav, for the 1st Cavalry. Incidentally, the 1st Cavalry and Army Division had the largest patch of any division, of any division even today. We called it the Horse Blanket Division. What was unique about going to Japan for occupation duty, we went in, advance party went in on August the 28th, 1945. I landed on August the 29th, 1945. Aboard the Missouri didn't take place until September the 2nd. So theoretically, when we landed at Atsugi, we didn't know what we were going to find, whether the word had gotten out that Japan was surrendering or had surrendered, because no formal peace had been signed. So, not having any duties, I wandered around Yokohama, got a chance to fly over Hiroshima in a B-25 and saw the devastation that we had visited on Japan. I didn't know what Hiroshima looked like before, but there wasn't much left in August of 1945. I've seen Hiroshima today, and it looks like Las Vegas. And it's really a metropolis that's been rebuilt, all electrified, and doing very well. I would like, in closing, this is for us World War II vets, primarily, this particular event. But I would like to recognize all veterans, Korea, Afghanistan, Iraq. There was some before that. Vietnam. Yeah, I can't forget Vietnam. But I'm not going to talk about Vietnam. And one other thing. I don't know, maybe there are, maybe there aren't. But when we paid tribute to the various services, the Army, the Navy, the Marines, the Coast Guard, I would have liked to, I don't know whether, maybe you can stand up and be recognized, the women who served in the armed forces, whether it was as a nurse or what have you. Are there any who served? Thank you. I think sometimes the women who serve get kind of left out from time to time. So I'm pleased that you're here, and I want to recognize you, and the applause recognizes you. That's about all I have to say. Most of my military action was in Vietnam, and maybe that'll be at another time. But World War II was swift, painful, and fortunately I survived. Biggest thing that I could remember after the war, when I was coming home in 1946 from Japan, I caught a hop in Seattle. That's where the ship landed. The ship that brought us back to the States. I caught a hop on a B-25, and they let me ride from Seattle to Baltimore in the nose of that B-25. And I had the whole United States spread out in front of me, coming from Seattle going east. It was unbelievable for somebody who, took a train ride from Fort Meade, Maryland, to basic training in South Carolina, and then another train ride to the West Coast, and a long boat ride from there to the Philippines. It was unbelievable to see our country spread out like that. Thank you. Thank you, Erica.
Thank you so much, Mr. Curlin. Our next speaker is very near and dear to me. We have spent every Friday morning sitting together at the same table in our Kiwanis group, and I am proud to call him my friend. Edward Huggy Elliott was born in Canada and moved to the United States at the age of 3. He is so proud to have served our country. He held a sonar petty officer position and was in the U.S. Navy Reserve from 1944 to 1946. He served on Minesweeper for 2 years and swept or destroyed 172 underwater mines. He handled sound navigation and radar and participated in the invasion of Okinawa. He was a retired fire lieutenant from the Detroit Fire Department, where he spent 25 years. He also spent 17 years as a Boy Scout leader and ended as a neighborhood commissioner. He is a 41-year resident of Fort Myers Beach and is here today with his lovely wife, Mary Lou, son Ted, and daughter-in-law, Bobby. He will also be celebrating his 89th birthday in just a few days. Let's give Huggy a warm welcome.
Compared to some, I feel I haven't done quite as much as I'd like to have. Can you hear me over there, sweetheart? Can you hear me now? Yeah. All right. As Erica has already stole some of my material here, I came to the United States on April Fool's Day, 1928. No comments, please. I went to school in Detroit and when the Army wanted me. I reported at the induction center. Bang, Navy rubber stamped. Great Lakes training off to the Chicago area by bus. After training off to Little Creek, Virginia by train for minesweep training. Then off to Key West for sonar training. What's sonar? Well, I have perfect pitch, so they tell me, although you wouldn't know it when I sang. But when a signal is sent out from a minesweeper or any other ship on sonar, the signal goes out, ping, And when it comes back, it either comes back ping up or ping down. The way that ping comes back determines the direction of the underwater craft that you're trying to track. So I went through that training, and then all of a sudden they discovered, you're not an American. We can't send you overseas. So they sent me to Miami instead. I got before a judge and he said, "Sailor, who was the president, who was the founder of our country?" And I said, George somebody. He said, "That's close enough. You're an American in uniform." At least that's what my story is. So then I went from Miami to Key West, and then to a new ship commissioning in Lorain, Ohio. Took a brand new minesweeper from the American Shipbuilding Company through the St. Lawrence Seaway, Boston, Bermuda, through the Panama Canal, to San Diego, then on to Pearl Harbor, and across the Pacific, past the Taken Islands, the islands that have already been taken care of. We swept to each China Sea approaches to many islands, and swept the harbors of Jinsen, Korea, long before the Korean War. Under kamikaze attack, while it anchored in Okinawa, and I, as a third-class petty officer, sounded general quarters on my ship. Third-class petty officers don't sound general quarters, but I did. Finally, we swept the beaches before the Okinawa invasion, entered Sasebo Harbor, Japan, 2 days after the atomic bomb ended the war. Continued sweeping after the cessation of the war to clear unswept areas. Total mine swept, as Erica said, 172, 173. Returned home after Christmas, still not old enough to buy a case of beer. When I asked my dad, they say to me, "How long did you serve in the Navy?" I say, "Well, approximately 2 years, 1 month, 9 days." I have a poem I would like to read for you. It's called A Poem Worth Reading. He was getting old and paunchy, and his hair was falling fast. He sat around the Legion, telling stories of the past, of a war that he once fought in, and the deeds that he had done, and his exploits with his buddies. They were heroes, every one. Though sometimes in his neighbors, his tales seemed a joke. All his buddies listened quietly, for they knew of what he spoke. But we'll hear his tales no longer, for old Joe has passed away, and the world is a better, poorer place, for a veteran died today. He won't be mourned by many, just his children and his wife, for he lived an ordinary life, a very quiet sort of life. He held a job and raised a family, going quietly on his way. The world won't notice passing, though a veteran died today. When politicians leave this earth, their bodies lie in state, and his ranks are growing thin, for his presence should remind us that they may not see his like again. For when a country are in conflict, we find the veteran's part is to clean up all the troubles where the politicians start. But we cannot do him honor while he's here to hear the praise. But at least he will give up homage at the ending of his days. Perhaps just a simple headline in a paper that might say, "Our country is in mourning. A veteran died today." Thank you.
And thank you, Huggy. Our next speaker, Mr. Robert Hillier, has quite the history. I attended a speaking engagement of his where he spoke about his experience in liberating Saint Ottilian for the concentration camp survivors. Robert Hilliard is a Purple Heart combat infantry veteran of World War II. He served with the 2nd Infantry Division and at the end of the war and in the occupation with the 2nd Air Disarmament Wing of the 9th Air Force. He has had careers as a media professional, as a federal government official in Washington, D.C., and as a college dean and professor. He earned a PhD at Columbia University. Among the 40 or so books that he has authored or co-authored is Surviving the Americans, The Continued Struggle of the Jews After Liberation, which deals with one of the legacies of World War II in Europe, the Holocaust survivors. He retired to Sanibel 7 years ago and devotes much of his time to writing plays, some of which you may have seen in Fort Myers at Theater Conspiracy and at the Laboratory Theater of Florida. Let's give Mr. Hilliard a warm welcome.
Thank you, Erica, for that very generous introduction. And if my mother were alive, I'd swear she wrote it. I kind of feel like an imposter here with so much brass in this room. Any other enlisted men sitting here this evening? You know what we used to say about officers, talking about second lieutenant? Second lieutenant is an officer and a gentleman of the lowest grade. And as time goes on, he gets more rank. Erica Appecker, thank you so much for organizing this event. Can you hear me? Ms. Appecker, thank you very much for organizing this event every year. It gives us a chance to remember what we did in World War II and why we did it. One of the things that I learned from World War II is that we Americans, when we want to be, can be a most caring and compassionate people. I think back to 1945 and the end of the war in Europe. If some of you here were in Germany as the war ended, you saw the refugees from the horrors of that war, especially the children who survived the concentration camps, the death camps. I can still see their faces, begging for asylum from starvation, rape, and murder. We GIs did whatever was necessary to put our humanitarian concerns above political concerns. I had been in the 2nd Infantry Division, 9th Regiment, was hit a couple of times, and when I got out of the hospital was LA'd. That's limited assignment to you non-GIs. To the 2nd Air Disarmament Wing of the 9th Air Force at the Kaufbeuren Air Base in Bavaria, in Germany. If any of you here were in either of those outfits, please let's meet this evening. Even before the war was over, you remember how we disobeyed General Eisenhower's order not to stop and liberate the concentration camps? But as we stumbled across the camps on our way to the Polish and Czechoslovakian borders, we were dumbstruck by the horrors we saw and couldn't help but stop and free the few political skeletons who were still alive. And the worst of all was seeing the faces of those children, the hollowed, staring eyes of the children who survived. And we GIs, we American GIs, we compassionate, caring Americans, did what Americans pride ourselves on doing. We helped those less fortunate than ourselves. If some of you, like me, didn't have enough points to go home when the war ended, you saw tens of thousands of displaced persons freed from concentration camps and slave labor factories, wandering, just wandering in the American and British zones of Germany and Austria, looking for food, looking for shelter. The army and the military government were not prepared for the refugees, the displaced persons, the DPs. And thousands continued to die for lack of food, shelter, clothing, and medicines. I documented this in my book, Surviving the Americans, and it was documented by Nobel Prize-winning concentration camp survivor Elie Wiesel in his book, Night, and in the Academy Award-winning film documentary, The Long Way Home. While the army and military government did virtually nothing for these people, they survived because individual GIs literally gave them the food out of their mess kits and the shirts off their backs. American compassionate servicemen and women saved thousands of lives of survivors through their individual caring. We did it a number of ways, including stealing food from our own mess halls to bring to the starving survivors. The cooks were selling our food in the black market anyway, and we put it to better use. We would browbeat German burgomeisters, the mayors, into getting us food to take to the DP camps. The German civilians were getting more rations from the occupation forces than were their surviving victims. Was what we did illegal? Probably. But sometimes it is more important to be illegal than to insist on legality that results in the suffering and even death of innocent people, especially children. For many months, the survivors got no help. If anyone here has seen the award-winning film documentary narrated by Stutz Terkel, Displaced: Miracle at St. Attilion, you know how my Army buddy, Edward Herman, and I risked court-martial by writing and getting fellow GIs to mail all over the States a long letter accusing the American people of continued genocide by neglect, because so many survivors and DPs continue to die for lack of food and medicines. How the American people responded by sending over 1,000 care packages. How the letter reached President Truman, who took action. The front page headline of the New York Times, September 30th, 1945, read, "President orders Eisenhower to end new abuse of Jews, likens our treatment to that of the Nazis." That experience reinforced something we've always felt about America. When we want to be, we can be the light of the world, a compassionate, caring country to help those less fortunate than ourselves. At the end of World War II, we Americans not only saved the lives of many victims of fascist oppression, but opened up the doors of our country, as we've always done, each new wave of immigrants reinvigorating the progress of this great nation. I can still see the faces of the children in 1945, wanting to come to America to escape the brutality of war and its aftermath. I want to quote from one of the columns of one of America's premier writers, Roger Williams of the Florida Weekly, who incidentally happens to be here this evening. Mr. Williams wrote in a recent column relating soccer and the World Cup to the pride of different countries. Quote, "If we are to lose the real World Cup, it will not be the result of coming out in the short end of goals scored in Rio. It will be instead the consequence for failing to take the words on the Statue of Liberty to heart, especially when it comes to children. Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free, the wretched refuse of your teeming shore. I saw that at the end of World War II. I saw that and was so proud of my fellow GIs who, as I said, gave their own food and clothing and even took what some considered illegal actions to help the less fortunate. Proud to be a compassionate American. Sometimes we get too complacent and with self-protection and forget what it means to be the salvation of refugees, of children desperate to stay alive, to come and continue to build our great country. We all stand tall when we reinvigorate what we proudly stand for, as I saw in Europe in World War II. All of us here, in the spirit of 45, caring, compassionate Americans. Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hilliard, for that heartfelt presentation. Good evening, everyone. My name is Adam Prentke III, and I am the commander of American Legion Post 303 in Bonita Springs. It is truly an honor to be with all of you here today and to have the privilege to participate in this amazing event. At this time, it is my pleasure to introduce to you an amazing and talented group of individuals. This group was originally founded in October of 2011. Its founding members, feeling the need to fill a gap, organized a volunteer group here in Southwest Florida to assist, join, and help organize performances for fire, police, paramedic, military, and nonprofit civic organizations. Today, its members are made up of both active and retired firefighters, law enforcement officers, military veterans, paramedics, as well as like-minded performers who support the idea of promoting comradeship and brotherhood through their Celtic music performances, its rich traditions, and the group's support of their various service organizations. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my distinct pleasure to introduce to you Guns N' Hoses Pipes and Drums of Southwest Florida.
Southwest Florida. At this time, it is our privilege to play our military set. We ask that as your service song is played, to stand if you are able and be recognized. God bless all in this house. God bless the United States of America. Pipes and drums ready. Fire the rolls. Quick march.
At this time, it is my pleasure to introduce to you Commander of Post 274, American Legion, Greg Van Dusseldorf.
Thank you, everyone. All right, as you heard, my name is very long. It's Van Dusseldorf. It's Dutch for all you Marines. It's not German. Okay, this is one of the most important parts of the program, I believe. I want to tell you a little bit about the POW MIA table, and then we have a real treat in store for you. As you enter the banquet hall this evening, you notice this small table in a place of honor. It is set for one. This table is our way of symbolizing the fact that members of our profession of arms are missing from our midst. They are commonly called POWs or MIAs, but we call them brothers. They're unable to be with us, and so we remember them. The table is set for one, and it's small, symbolizing the frailty of one prisoner against his oppressors. Remember, the tablecloth is white, symbolizing the purity of their intentions to respond to their country's call to arms. Always remember. The single red rose displayed in a vase reminds us of the families and loved ones of our comrades in arms who keep the faith awaiting for them to come home. Remember. The red ribbon tied so prominently around the vase is reminiscent of the red ribbon worn upon the lapel and breasts of thousands who bear witness to their undying determination to demand a proper accounting of all of our missing. Remember. The candle is lit, symbolizing the upward reach of their incomparable spirit. Always remember. A slice of lemon is on the bread plate to remind us of their bitter fate. Remember. There's salt upon the bread plate, symbolic of the family's tears as they wait. Remember. The glass is inverted. They cannot toast with us tonight. Remember. The chair is empty. They are not here. Remember. All of you who served with them and called them comrades, who depended upon their might and their aid and relied upon them, for surely they have not forsaken you. Remember. Remember until the day they come home. And now I would like to introduce to you Mr. Matthew Lawrence, who is going to address the POW MIA table. Matthew was a POW for 3 years in Germany. Present arms! Ready? 2! Thank you, Matthew.
You may all be seated. I want to thank Van and Mr. Lawrence for paying honor to our prisoners of war and those still missing in action. This evening, we gather to commemorate the end of World War II and honor the men and women who answered their nation's call in time of need. When their country asked who will go, these men and women raised their right hand and said, "I will stand up and serve my country with honor and defend the values of freedom and democracy. Send me." We also remember today the lives lost. We owe them and all our veterans a debt which we can never repay. Today, as never before, let us pledge to honor them. Let us pray for peace, and forever let this day embody the ritual of remembrance. In memory of those who gave the last measure of devotion, we now offer this solemn tribute to all comrades. May this reverent gesture symbolize the sacred ground of our fallen brothers and sisters wherever they may rest. At this time, on behalf of our glorious republic, for whose integrity our comrades enlisted and served, I would now like to ask that World War II veteran Ernie Javier to please present the wreath as an eternal reminder of our fellow comrades' sacrifice and our devotion to their memories. In the battlefields of Belgium during World War I, beautiful poppies grew amid the ravaged landscape and amongst the newly placed graves of soldiers killed in battle. How could such a beautiful little flower grow wild while surrounded by such devastation and death? The fate of the poppy as a memorial symbol was realized when Canadian Forces Lieutenant Colonel John McCrae penned the now famous verses of his poem In Flanders Field. The poem was published and quickly became synonymous with the sacrifices of the soldiers who died in battle. Its appeal to the masses was almost universal. Soldiers took encouragement from it as a statement of their duty to those who died, while those on the home front viewed it as defining the cause for which their brothers and sons were fighting. Today, we as veterans view this poem and the memorial red poppy in much the same way. They have stood the test of time as a symbol of the sacrifices our men and women have made, and as a reminder to all to honor the soldiers who have died defending the country they love so much. It is my pleasure to introduce to you Ms. Kay Perucki from the American Legion Post 303 Auxiliary, who will share this treasured poem with you.
In Flanders fields the poppies blow, between the crosses row by row, that mark our place, and in the sky the larks still bravely singing fly. Scarce heard amid the guns below, we are the dead short days ago. We lived, felt dawn, saw sunsets glows, loved and were loved, and now we lie in Flanders fields. Take up our quarrel with the foe, to you from failing hands we throw. The torch be yours to hold it high. If you break faith with us who die, we shall not sleep, though poppies grow in Flanders fields.
Thank you, Kay. At this time, I would now like to ask Ms. Kay Perucki and Ms. Erica Aptaker to lead the presentation of the poppies, accompanied by Guns and Hoses. We invite all those who are willing and able to participate in the solemn tribute in memory of our departed. I would like to ask the Lee County Sheriff's Office Honor Guard to please prepare and fire your volleys, followed by taps performed by Guns and Hoses. Hand salute. Thank you so much to the Lee County Sheriff's Office Honor Guard and Guns N' Roses, Pipes and Drums of Southwest Florida for that moving tribute and shooting the hand. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of Erica and the Spirit of 45 Committee, I wish to thank all of you for attending this evening's services. My sincere appreciation to the various sponsors and to Kelly Green's Golf and Country Club for their gracious contributions toward this special event. Also, a special thank you goes out to my fellow hosts, guest speakers, dignitaries, and the various organizations who, without your support and participation, none of this would have been possible. Finally, I would like to thank my fellow veterans and especially those who we honor and remember with this evening's services. For those here today, we extend our deepest gratitude. Through the spirit of liberty and deep obligation, you found courage to defend this nation against the forces of tyranny and sustain us and our allies during the darkest days of grave danger. You carried into battle with you the thoughts and hopes of all America. You left families and loved ones, and through lonesomeness, anxiety, and fear, you fought to preserve liberty and decency and overcome the forces of evil. For those present, however, remembering August 14th, 1945 is not only about the closing of a chapter. Though this day will forever symbolize the end of World War II, it should also be recognized as a new beginning. For this is also the day that the greatest generation took on the daunting task of rebuilding a shattered nation. Through the principles of faith and hope, our soldiers would come home with renewed devotion to the opportunities ahead, and together they would lead the country in a new direction of peace and posterity. Let us also remember those who are not with us today. Let us remember with reverence the valor and devotion of our departed soldiers. Let us always be mindful of the costs of victory and that ultimately freedom is never truly free. Let us always remember that through their willing sacrifice, they ensure the survival of a grateful nation. This is the legacy we pay tribute to today. For we both honor and remember here, you are the true heroes of yesterday, today, and tomorrow. Your story is the story of a veteran, a story of youth and strength, a love of country, and one of devout loyalty. You will forever belong to history as furnishing one of the greatest examples of patriotism. You belong to posterity as the teacher for future generations for the principles of liberty and freedom. And you belong to us in the present by your virtues and your achievements. Words can never truly honor your sacrifices, for you have written your own history through your love of country and your devotion to peace. On this day, let us pause to remember those sacrifices made. Let us always be mindful that because of you, our lives are free. Because of you, our nation lives. Because of you, this world is truly blessed. May God bless and protect our veterans. May He protect our men and women serving in uniform and sustain them through their hour of danger and through His grateful sense of mercy. May they find safe passage home to their loving families. Before we conclude today's services, I would like to ask Van to please step forward for one final musical tribute. Then this will conclude our service for today. Thank you very much. Van.
If tomorrow all the things were gone I'd worked for all my life, and I had to start again with just my children and my wife, I'd thank my lucky stars to be living here today, 'cause the flag still stands for freedom and they can't take that away. Hey, and I'm proud to be an American. Where the East I know I'm free, and I won't forget those who died, who gave that right to me, and I'm glad today, 'cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA. From the lakes of Minnesota to the hills of Tennessee, across the plains of Texas, from sea to shining sea, from Detroit down to Houston, New York to LA, well, there's pride in every American heart, and it's time we stand and say, hey, well, I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free, and I won't forget those who died, who gave that right to me, and I'll gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today, 'cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA. Hey, I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free, and I won't forget those who died, who gave that right to me, and I'll gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today. Everybody now, there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA. God bless the USA. God bless the USA.
Beginning, it's the first half. But then I started like, we're getting shots of beginning, it's the first half. But then I started like, we're getting shots of beginning, it's the first half. But then I started like,
Remember when we vowed the vows and walked the walk, gave our hearts, made the start, and it was hard. We lived and learned life in curves. There was joy, there was hurt. Remember when died and you were born. Life was changed. Disassembled, rearranged. We came together, fell apart, and broke each other's hearts. Remember when? Remember when we vowed the vows and walked the walk, gave our hearts, made the start, and it was hard. We lived and learned life in curves. There was joy, there was hurt. Remember when? Remember when old ones died and new were born. Life was changed. Disassembled, rearranged. We came together, fell apart, and broke each other's hearts. Remember